My name is Jessica Johnson. I'm the founder of Black Travelers Network, and I want to first say thank you to our guest, Amy. Welcome, Amy. And so,
thank you for having me.
No problem, no problem. So, Amy, one of the things that before we get into talking today, because Amy has traveled to, among a number of places, I'm sure, is Cuba. And so Cuba is a destination that's been really popular in this community. And one of the places that a lot of you who are listening to this have either visited or have at some point in time expressed an interest in visiting. And so before we get into that conversation, I want to take some time to kind of learn a little bit about you, Amy, and just tell us, where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Well, both of my parents are from Ghana, West Africa, and I grew up in Massachusetts, and I moved to New York about 6 years ago for a job opportunity. So I haven't lived a lot of places, but Massachusetts, New York, and Alabama are three states that I've lived in, and I love New York. So I met a lot of people that are travelers out here in New York, so that always motivates me to travel or explore different countries.
Okay. And so you said your parents are originally from Ghana, right?
Yep.
And so when did your family come to the States?
My family came here in the around 80s, early 80s, and been here back and forth. I mean, they live half the year out here, and they live the rest of the half in Ghana. Okay. So they come back and forth.
What part of Ghana?
My father's from Kumasi and my mother's from Afua.
Okay. So I've had the pleasure of visiting Ghana. Ghana is a very beautiful country. And it's another country that has come up among our community in terms of a lot of people wanting to go to Ghana. It's a place that, I highly recommend people travel to and visit. And so do you ever get a chance to go back and forth from the States to Ghana on the regular?
I can't, because I feel like I cannot do a week. Especially if you're from there, everybody. So you would have. I mean, some people can do it, but for me, I would have to be weeks. So with jobs and I don't know, it would take a few weeks at a time. So for me, it's been a while since I've been in Ghana.
Yeah. And you make an excellent point, especially when it comes to Ghana. Like, you really need some time to explore. There's so much to see in Ghana. When I visited, I was in Kumasi and Cape Coast and Accra, and I don't even feel like I really got a chance to see everything. I even went to a place called Estacado. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful country. So tell me this, you said that you lived in a number of different places here in the United States. Did you travel a lot when you were younger?
No, Ghana was the only place. I started traveling around 2014. That's when I started okay, let me explore other countries besides just Africa. I wanted to explore other places. So I had a traveling friend. She still is my traveling friend. But then last year I decided to travel by myself on some trips. So that's been an adventure as well.
Yeah,
can't wait on people.
Exactly. And you mentioned a good point. You said you had a traveling friend. Just out of curiosity, how did you find your traveling friend? How did you guys meet?
Well, she's my coworker, actually. And yeah, it didn't happen overnight. You have to get a feel of people. And we did a small trip. We went to Canada, to Caravana for the weekend. And then, so it kind of gave me a taste of her style of traveling and my style. of traveling. And then I was like, wow, she's an easy person to travel with.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my trips, bulk of my trips have been with her. And then last year, I decided, like, I think everybody should go to a country by themselves and just be in another country and sit in a strange land and figuring out and navigating things by yourself. It's scary. You learn so much about yourself. I think at least in your lifetime, you should go.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you say traveling by yourself, so do you sort of like identify? Did you identify a country that you wanted to go to and then just like purchase your tickets? Like, what was sort of your process to say, I'm going to do this by myself and this is what I want to get out of the experience?
Right. It started off because a lot of people, I felt like I wasn't traveling enough because I was waiting on people. Right. So I decided, like, let me start with a small island. And I did, before the hurricane, I did Puerto Rico in August last year. And I said, if I could do Puerto Rico where, I mean, people speak Spanish, they also speak English. I still have access to, like, you know, using my phone and things like that. I don't have to, like, wait for Wi-Fi or anything like that because it's a U.S. territory. I started out with Puerto Rico, and then I went to Vieques Island by myself and just navigating it by myself. Like, I rented a Jeep and just, like, you know, drove all the way around Vieques Island and just was like really like enjoying my own company. So I said to myself, if I can do Puerto Rico without any problems, then I'm going to do South America. So Puerto Rico went well. And then after that, 2 months later, I did Colombia and Ecuador by myself.
Oh, wow. Wow. And other amazing countries for people to explore. Yeah. So where did Cuba come up on your list of places to travel?
Cuba was it was Memorial Day weekend last year. Based on, I knew, like, as was Trump got elected, that I knew he was going to change the rules again for Cuba. And I guess a lot of people had my idea because when I got there was a lot of Americans there, a lot of Black Americans there as well. But I always wanted to go to Cuba without, like, getting in trouble, or so to speak. So we went on Memorial Day, me and 2 other friends.
Okay. And when you went, what parts, can you just give us an overview of the parts that you visited while you were there?
So with Cuba, I was in Havana. I stayed there for most of the time, and then we went to Bardero, which they have, like, really nice beaches. And the thing about Cuba, because it's a communist country, they don't have, like, a tourism, like, department, like how like here in New York, you go to Times Square, there's tickets that you can buy and things like that. With Cuba, it's really, it's like, it's luck. We were walking around and we're like, what are we gonna do? Because we don't have, like, a list, and there's no Wi-Fi, right? And if you get Wi-Fi, it's like you have to pay for it, and you can only be on it for like an hour at most.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's very tight with their Wi-Fi. And so we went into a hotel, and the lady at the receptionist was like, my daughter could show you around. And for that whole time that we were there, we were hanging out with her daughter, and she took us around Cuba.
Wow. So, and you were there in Havana for how long?
We got there Tuesday. We came back Monday night.
Oh, wow. So you got a chance to see.
Yeah.
So you did Havana. Oh, go ahead.
Havana and Bardero Beach. Yeah, that's about 12 miles away from Havana. So you have to, like, take a cab, or somebody has to take you there.
Oh, wow. So that's one of the challenges in terms of, you know, just being in Cuba, you know, and this is one of the things, because we initiated a trip last year. We got a lot of people who were interested in going, and one of the the challenges that we were told is that everything kind of goes through the government, and there are certain parts of the island you can't even
Yeah.
see because
Right.
everything has to be approved. Can you talk about
Mhm.
the impact that the government plays in the lives of both the citizens as well as those who travel to Cuba?
Right. So, okay, so certain parts of Cuba in Havana, you would see like some developments of fixing buildings because they really are stuck in like 1955 to 65.
Hmm.
So some of the buildings, um, like some of there's some development and it looks very modern, but it looks kind of out of place. So, but that's like I was told that was like European investors. So they had like coffee shops that were very modern, and then right next to it would be like an 1800 century building. So some of Cuba is they have a lot of like foreign investors. So some places are like here and there you'll see like a modern coffee shop or a restaurant that's overpriced for the people of Cuba. So that's how I knew when I was like in a tourist like restaurant, is because usually a meal in Cuba is like $4 US dollars, but then in this restaurant, if you happen to stumble into a restaurant and you see the prices, it'll be like $15, and that's how you know it was a foreign investor that created that restaurant. But because it's a communist country and because it's a dictatorship, you're not supposed to make more than what the government gives you.
Mm.
So, like when you discuss price and money, it's very hidden and stuff. So even with our tour guide, she's not officially a tour guide. You know, she could get in trouble if they found out that she was like making extra money because we paid her to take us around for the whole week.
Right.
So, so yes, the government gets in the way a lot, but it, like I was saying before, the young people have a different perspective of it. They want to make money. They want to have access to the internet. They want to have access to travel. Because I think right now in Cuba, you can only go to the Soviet Union and China.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, if you're a Cuban, they one of the tour guide was telling me, Yudi, her name is Yudi. She was telling me that they take all your documents if you travel outside of those two places.
Mm.
So they want access to the world. Where the older, our cab driver, which was Yudi's family friend, he loves Cuba. He can't stand America. He can't stand the West. He thinks that he can't believe in America that you don't have free healthcare and free education. He can't believe in America that you can lose everything if you lose your job. So for him, he was like, I would never go to America.
Mm.
You know, I don't have desire to go to America. Where the younger generation, because our tour guide was 25,
Wow.
she longs to like travel and go and have access. Everything's underground. Like the way they get their music is underground. If like some of the latest songs that were out, I was like, how do you know it? She couldn't even tell me how she gets her music because it's
Wow.
that much hush. Yeah. So different, like depending on who you speak to,
Mm-hmm.
some love it the way it is, which is usually the older generation, and the younger people, you know, they just wish they had access to more.
Mm. So when it comes to like your unofficial guide, but your official guide, who took you around,
Right.
what were some of the places that she took you?
She took me to the Bay of Pigs.
Mm.
She took me to another part of Cuba, her neighborhood. She took me to her neighborhood where she grew up, and one of the nice things is that in her neighborhood, it looks like it's, you know, impoverished, but when you walk into her house, it's huge. It's like high ceilings and like artistic, and probably would go for a lot of money out here.
Mm.
But it's still considered a poor neighborhood. And but it's still part of Havana. But the family hosted us and cooked for us. So they were very hospitable, you know, with her and her family, her husband. They all live in the same house.
Mm.
You know, her husband, her mother, and her stepfather, they all share the house. And she's a teacher that teaches English in Cuba.
Mm.
So it was good to see like a real life family in Cuba instead of just being around tourists. We
Mm-hmm.
actually got to be around like everyday people, which to me was like important. Everywhere I go and I travel, I try to get out of the tourist areas. I try to see
Exactly.
like how the people live. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
And oh,
yeah.
go
Mhm.
ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you were saying you were gonna say more.
No, I was just saying that for me, a lot of places that I've gone, I try to go to where it's where real people live and how they live, everyday living, because I just want to see like how people come here, like they go to Times Square, but like there's Queens, there's Brooklyn, there's the Bronx, Staten Island, like that makes
Mhm.
up New York,
That's right.
and I try to do that when I go to different countries.
Yeah. And you make a very good point because, as we travel to different places and spaces, one of our goals is to not only show our travelers, the parts of different countries that make that country known. So some of the important overall monuments or places to visit, but we really work to give our travelers that real life, real world experience where they can connect to like real citizens who look like
Hmm.
us in
Right.
the destinations that we travel. Can you talk
Mhm.
about from your experience, like being on the island? What did it look like in terms of the Black Cubans? Like, what was sort of some of the observations you made about
Okay.
those brothers and sisters there?
I think with Cuba, we have this conception that they look like Carmen Diaz or Marco Rubio, or, like for me, I thought Cubans were, lighter complected. But when I went there, I was so surprised that like Cubans look like me. They like dark skin. Like one of my tour guides, unofficial tour guide's husband, if he said he was from, Africa or Ghana, like, and he just came to Cuba, like you would believe it, even though he's been in Cuba all his life. There's a hue of dark skin there, variations of dark skin there, which to me, they have our hair, they're African to me, African people, African descent. So it wasn't like the stereotypical Cuban that we see here,
Mhm.
that or they portray in the media. It was Black people, and they were so happy to see us. So the only way they knew I wasn't from Cuba was because my hair was braided. And they
Mm.
said here in Cuba, like, we don't have anybody that like braids like with synthetic hair, right? So they braid
Wow.
their own hair, but they don't have like, can they add synthetic hair? So that's how they knew I was from America. But other than that, it's we blended in, you
Mm.
know?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, which
And
was beautiful to see.
yeah, and so like, did you make any sort of observations about like some of the businesses, like the local businesses that exist there? Because it seems like the government has such a heavy hand. And one of the things that we were told is that like when it comes to like even like the farmers, the government gets a portion of whatever
Hmm.
it is they make.
Yep, that is true. This was like the first country where I was reminded about the government every single day.
Mm,
Like everything was so like hush. Like yes, they had businesses, but it was run by the government.
mm,
So there was a lot of like underground things, like an underworld of like people selling you cigars or rum, cheaper. It's already according to like American dollars, it's already cheap.
mhm,
But then they have a whole different market underground that will sell it to you cheaper, and it's hush and it's in the back. So that part made me feel a little bit weary, because like we're going into the back to like get Romeo and Juliet cigars, and you just like, and they're so they're not, I don't want to say desperate, but they're so into like making that sale, getting that American money. And
mhm,
it's just to, because you like my the tour guide, her rent is $20 and her salary is 120,
mm.
and that's what they're living off of. So we're
Wow.
here in America, like when we ask for like seconds or something at a restaurant or something or at home, like they don't really believe in that because they don't have a lot to go around. You know what I mean? And you don't go to the supermarket on certain days, and it's a line outside so that you can't all go like how we go into a grocery store. We just all of us go as we please. Like you have to wait in line, and they let a few at a time to go in.
Oh, wow.
For the grocery. Yeah.
Significantly different.
Yes. Even when I wanted to get soda, it's like how the bodegas are, like the liquor stores are in certain neighborhoods with the bulletproof glass, and you have to pick what you want. It's like even more like armored, where like you don't even get to walk in the store. You have to point from the window what you want.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's very controlled. So the underline is the government. You're always, I was one of the, like I said, one of the first countries where I'm always aware, like, wow, the government is really involved here. You know?
Would you say from your observation, would you say that there's opportunities there for those who are not, of course, Cuban? Are there any opportunities for people that look like us to come in and whether it's do any sort of humanitarian work or help and assist in terms of business development? Like, what are some of the opportunities that you saw? Or is it a country that's still not quite there yet in terms of, being accepting of not saying that there's not a desire to have it, but is the structure there in place for those of us who may want to go and have some sort of impact? Because just like listening to you, like the fact that they knew that you weren't from there because of the kind of braids you had. I mean, like, I just think I hear stuff like that and I'm like, I know so many hairdressers who could go and have some type of impact,
They could, but the government would shut that down. The government would shut that down. I remember my the tour guide, who's become like family now. She was saying that she was so hopeful when Obama lifted some of the sanctions in 2015. They were trying to like on the underground, because everything's state-run media. So there's this like underground where they can get telenova. And you pay a little bit of extra. It's illegal. Like, it's a legal wire to get telenova. So they were able to follow the election through telenova. And Telemundo, I'm sorry, Telemundo. They were able to get snippets of the election. And when they found out that Hillary Clinton lost, they knew that Cuba would be stagnant. And that's the thing. Like, I was excited, when Obama like lifted up the sanctions, because then a lot of people started having building hotels down there.
Yeah.
But now it's like half done because of the reimposed sanctions by Trump. So it's just like Cuba's like stagnant. Like, there was, when they said Obama was here, like a lot of people started coming more to Cuba. And when I was there, a lot of people went to Cuba because they knew that Trump was going to change it. So I went in May, and by July, I think Trump changed the down. Now you have to have permission again to go to Cuba.
Yeah.
Or what other people are doing is going to other countries and then go to Cuba.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can do it that way too.
Yeah, it shifted so quickly, just being able to travel. And that's one of the main reasons why, when we created our group excursion, we wanted our folks to go on this trip. And unfortunately, people expressed an interest and decided, it wasn't for them. And so we pulled it back at that particular time. I'm sorry?
How long ago was this?
This was right before Trump implemented the change, but we had it scheduled for October of
Yeah.
2017. And what we were trying to do is we were trying to get everybody registered to lock it in advance, so that, you know, no matter what he did, it was already pretty much guaranteed. And with our trip, we really wanted to explore the impact that Africa has had on
Mm-hmm.
Cuban culture and history.
Yeah.
And so we had some very strategic locations. And because of that, like, I'm not sure if we can offer that again at this point, but I do feel like it's really important for those who are a part of the community, who, you know, if you have the resources and the connections and you are able to travel, I think it would be really good, because it's a very important place in the diaspora.
Yeah, I have two people that I consulted with that goes to Cuba a lot. I have one friend that goes to Cuba a lot. Um, well, acquaintance that goes to Cuba a lot. I don't know if I think she has family in Cuba, so she's able to go.
So I mean, is there anything else you'd like to say in terms of, um, you know, Cuba? It sounds like you had a really great experience there, and is it a place that you would recommend folks to visit?
I would say with Cuba, it's one of the best trips I've been to thus far. It's very affordable. The hospitality is amazing. I did an Airbnb there. I think for my whole time there was $120. I came back home with money. Like, I didn't spend a lot in Cuba. But if you're looking for something where you can disconnect from everything, I think in Cuba is a great place for that. There's no access to Wi-Fi, TV, nothing.
Mm.
So you're really there with yourself. And I went with my two other girlfriends, and we just talked and got to know each other. We weren't on our phones. With Cuba, there was no, where we were staying at, the only luxury we had was like air conditioning. But other than that, we had no access to Wi-Fi. We had no access to like TV, cable, anything. So I think with us three, we were able just to be and talk and share things and bond and, you know, really explore the country, the island, without like always on our phone. You know what I mean? And to me, Cuba is very authentic. It's not commercialized. You know, you're really in like 1955. All the cars, they're beautiful. You only see them on TV, but you don't. You're seeing it like as an everyday car, like a 1952 Chevy. Like that's their main, you know, transportation. It's just like those cars, like Grease, the movie Grease. That's what you're seeing. So, and you're seeing buildings that run down, but you can still see the beauty in them and the people. And they're so happy to meet other people from different countries, and you're welcomed there. As a Black person, you are welcome in Cuba. So, and what I like about it also is like they're so humble. Like there was a lot of clothes that I didn't really need, and because they don't have stores like I have, I gave my tour guide some clothes, and she just started crying. Like it's just a very humble experience, you know, and they're just so grateful. And everybody that I know that's went to Cuba is like, I'm going back. So I definitely recommend it. As a person, you're welcome as a person of color there, as a Black person.
This is great to hear you like sort of reinforce that, because one of the things that I've been very vocal with the community about is the importance that Cuba plays to the African diaspora as a whole. You know, Brazil received the highest allotment of enslaved Africans. And a lot of people don't know, but the second largest African enslaved population actually went to Mexico. And Cuba actually received the third. And so it's really very much like another community of African people. And so I appreciate you for like really pointing that out. And before I sort of log off, I want to again thank you so much for stepping up and agreeing to have this very open public conversation with us and with our community. And Amy actually runs her own sort of meetup group, and I want you to tell us a little bit more about your meetup group and how folks in the community can be supportive.
Sure, absolutely. The name of my group is called Woke Women of Color Empowered, color with a K, and it's a safe space for women of color to speak about issues that impact women of color. Last group we did was What's Your Narrative, and it's like, how do negative stereotypes of women of color impact you in various ways, and us just venting out. Woke is centered on, I am fortunate to work with a few Black women, and what I noticed is that when things bother us, we would meet for lunch, like at the cafeteria or at the back of the office, and we couldn't speak, or we had to like whisper it, especially if it comes to racism and sexism and things of that nature. So Woke, we meet once a month where I pick a topic and we just talk about those things that impact us, and how do you deal, and do you have advice for other women that can be helpful, and especially in web spaces. So Woke is for women, and it's I'm really just, it's everybody's group.
Mm.
And we really try to establish that you're not alone in this, and my goal is to create a network where there is a safety net for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I know you're located in New York. Are there ways that people can connect to you and the community even if they're not in New York?
Yeah, absolutely. We're on Facebook. So if you just put in at Women of Color as just one word, color is with a K. And you can also look us up and find us on Instagram at Woke10, and that's on Instagram. So I usually post stories that focus on women of color, and articles that focus on women of color.
Okay,
that's at Woke10 on Instagram, and Women of Color at Women of Color Empowered on Facebook. Yes. And you can join the meetup because I also post a link there.
Oh, okay. So you can join. Yes. So this is really great. I mean, we do need spaces in different parts of the country, and support groups, because as women and as African Americans, I always encourage the men who are a part of the community. I really wish that the brothers would tap into their own sort of safe space, so as Black men they can have their own separate conversations. Those are important, because us as Black women, we definitely believe in that, and we're definitely doing that. And it's just another opportunity to not only support each other, but to also to network, as Amy has definitely highlighted and pointed out. And so what we're going to do, in sending out this video, and I want to in advance say, apologize to the community if there were some moments where there were some audio challenges or some breaks in the feed, but we're definitely going to get this out to everyone, and all of the social media tags for Amy's community will be included in that email. And whether you're in New York, Maryland, DC area, or Atlanta, or some of our other cities, I think it's really important for you guys to make sure that you follow Amy's community. If you have any questions, she's already said that she's open to answering questions, but definitely follow the community and be supportive of that. Again, Amy, many thanks to you. I'm sure that this will not be our last conversation. For those of you who stay tuned in, Amy has an upcoming trip to Morocco. So I definitely love to invite you back and hear your take on Morocco.
Absolutely. I will be glad to tell you. I'm totally excited about just seeing what I'm going to see, and I would definitely like to share that with the community.
All right. All right. Well, many thanks to you, and have a good evening. And you guys definitely share this video once it comes out. Please share it online. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. And thank you, Amy.